happy to be joined by former Penn State tight end and now big media personality for the program, Adam Breneman. Thanks for coming on. It's great to talk to you here.
So guys, appreciate having me on. Excited to talk to you and talk some Penn State football.
Yeah. So we want to just kind of start with, I guess Drew Aller is where to start this. A lot was made about his rep count last year. Some people thought it was way too low. I don't know where you stand on that. I mean, if you look at some of the quarterbacks that have redshirted their freshman year and then came out blazing the second year, Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud, the list goes on, that they got less reps than he did. Do you think do you think the rep count was fair and enough? And also how much stock do you put into sitting behind a 6-year guy like Sean Clifford and what that could do for him long term?
It's a good question. I really believe that the way Coach Franklin played that whole situation was perfect, and it's something that you're able to do when you've built credibility and you've won games. And as a head coach, he had as much outside pressure to make a change at quarterback and to play Drew as really any one of the Big Ten probably had. I mean, there was so much talk, and people wanted to see Sean in his 7th year of college football hit the bench and Drew to come in. And really, that's a problem that coaches deal with all the time when you have a young, highly recruited quarterback coming in behind a veteran guy who's played a lot, who hasn't yet won the big game and hasn't won a championship. So that's a common problem in college football coaches have to face. A lot of times coaches who don't have the stability, who don't have the confidence, who don't have the kind of the leeway from the program and from the administration and from the fans have to make that change because the public pressure is so much. Coach Franklin, on the other hand, was able to stick to his guns. He's proved that he's doing things that are best for the program, and I think played it perfectly. It's easy for fans to sit there and say that Drew was a better option at quarterback, but I know, and you guys know, those guys in practice see the situation every single day, and I have no doubt that if they believed Drew Aller was the better choice at quarterback, he would have been the starter. But that wasn't the case. Sean Clifford was the better quarterback. He led them to win the Rose Bowl, ended his career on a really high note. I thought he played really well throughout the year. So that whole situation and dynamic, I give Coach Franklin a lot of credit for it. And at the same time was able to give Drew Aller enough reps to get him some quality time, to let him see what he can do against some really good opponents. Got to play against Purdue, got thrown him in the lights when he didn't think he was going to have to play. So I really believe that whole situation, the balance of it all, played out really well for everyone involved. It played out well for Clifford, played out well for Penn State. They were able to win 10 games during the season, go off and win the Rose Bowl, and for Drew to get the reps he needed. And I thought Drew looked really good and comfortable. Also looked like a freshman at times, but I thought he looked really comfortable in the snaps that he got.
So soon to be starting Green Bay Packers quarterback Sean Clifford. Adam, you spent a lot of time with Drew this offseason, interviewed him, I guess, a couple times maybe. What has most impressed you about him coming into the year?
A lot. He reminds me of, really, you think back to the last time there was as much excitement around a quarterback coming into Penn State, it was Christian Hackenberg, right, in 2013. He reminds me a lot of Christian from a mindset, personality standpoint, both super mature, great arm talent. I think Drew, when you talk to him, number one, he's a massive human being. So Drew is enormous. I don't know if you've met him in person yet, but he's huge. He makes me look tiny, and I'm 6'4", 250. So he's a big guy. He's extremely personable, just an easy guy to like. He's also very humble and quiet, and you kind of remember when you're around him that he's a 19-year-old kid, right? Like he hasn't been in the spotlight yet. But it's funny. I would say I've interviewed him, like you said, twice now. I've even seen him mature from a leader interview kind of, face of the program type standpoint from when I first interviewed him maybe in May to now when I just talked to him last week or 2 weeks ago. I mean, even the way he carries himself and how he prepares for that kind of stuff is really good. I think he's easy guy to root for. We talked on my most recent interview about kind of taking on the leadership role a little bit more and how he's trying to be the leader. but it's also tough to be the leader when you haven't gone out and won games yet, right? So the locker room doesn't want to have a leader who hasn't gone and done it on the field yet. So we talked about that balance and dynamic, and I just been really impressed with him. He's a great kid, obviously a special talent. I'm excited to see what he does.
Yeah, just kind of talking about the offense as a whole here, then a lot has been made about the receivers where there's a lot of question marks there. Do you think they need a 2019 LSU, 2020 Alabama receiving core to go all the way, or can they go the Georgia route where it's defense, tight ends, running backs, strong offensive line play? Do you think that's more the route Penn State can take to go to a national championship?
Yeah, another good question. Someone's going to have to step up at receiver if they want to go all the way. That's the reality. The good thing is there's a lot of positives about this offense, right? I look first at the offensive line. For so long at Penn State, the issue has been the offensive line. It's always been the depth, not having the stability at the O-line room. It stems all the way back to the sanction years and the scholarship count. It's been a trickle-down effect to now. They finally have a strength. The strength of their offense is, you could say, is the offensive line, maybe the running back room as well. So getting Olu to come back was obviously massive. The offensive line, having them there as the staple of the offense is huge. Having the running game that they have is awesome. Like it's so good for the quarter. Like it can't even put it into words how much that helps a quarterback to have Nick Singleton and Katron Allen in the backfield. Tight end room is special. Theo will be, I think, a day 2 draft pick. Tyler Warren's a guy who would start at most programs in the Big Ten. They got a great tight end room. The issue is going to become when you're that'll win you a lot of games in the Big Ten, right? That'll win you most games in the Big Ten. But if they're going to knock off Michigan or Ohio State, which I think the consensus is you got to win one of those games,
right?
You're going to need playmakers to make plays. It's going to have to happen. So a guy like Condre Lambert-Smith, or a guy like Dante Cephas, or a guy like maybe a young guy, maybe Liam Clifford, like one of these guys is going to have to step up and become the go-to guy when Drew Aller needs to make plays. And again, the good news is Drew has elite arm talent. What Drew brings to the table is the combination of arm talent with accuracy. Arm talent doesn't mean anything. And when people refer to arm talent, as you guys know, but for your listeners, when people refer to arm talent, normally they're talking about arm strength, like the ability to stand on one hash of the field and throw it 40 yards on the other hash of the field on a straight line on a bullet. But arm talent means nothing if you're not accurate. The most important trait for quarterback is accuracy, and Drew has that unique combination of having both. He's accurate with the football, and he has the arm talent. When you have that, you turn a receiver into a little bit better after the catch, a little bit more explosive because of the accuracy. The difference in sometimes catching a dig route for 15 yards and falling and catching a dig route and taking it for a 60-yard explosive play is just ball placement. It's just where the ball is. Is it on his hip a little bit behind him, like 2 inches behind him, or is it in stride? So, again, I know I'm getting long-winded here, but Drew has the ability to make receivers really good, but you still need, against Ohio State or Michigan, someone's going to have to step up and make a big play. So I think that's your answer. You can win most games in the Big Ten with what you got, but someone's got to step up at receiver to become one of the elite top 2 teams in the Big Ten.
Who have you seen really that you think can be that guy who steps up right now?
Yeah, so good question. I've been to one practice, so I haven't really seen a ton. I haven't seen. I'm not privy to practice film.
Yeah, okay.
I talk to a lot of guys, so I hear a lot of names get thrown around. Dre is someone that everyone talks about right now, and kind of I think for Dre, Condre Lambert-Smith, I really think it's a lot of times been his. It hasn't been the speed and the playmaking ability. It's been everything else around it. It's been, is he going to line up right? Do we know? Is he going to be healthy? It's been all the other things, the accountability things for him, from what I've heard. I think he's really taken his mindset,
it seems like,
the offensive side, the mental part of the game to the next level. So I think I'm excited to see him. Everyone's talking about Wallace too, and what he's been able to do, and he's flashed in practice a little bit. It's funny, every time I ask people about the receivers, they keep bringing up Theo Johnson. So I think we'll see Theo Johnson moved around and played all over the field. We're going to see more and more unique personnel packages than we've seen in the past from Mike Yurcich. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if if majority of plays have only two wide receivers on the field, between the ability to go 12 personnel with Theo and Tyler, and the ability to go 21 personnel with Katron and Nick, and the ability also to go 22. I mean, they'll have the ability, and we will see this. I guarantee you we're going to see it against West Virginia. We're going to see them go 22 personnel. Again, this isn't a source or I'm just saying this is what I think they will do. If I'm Mike Yursich, they will go 22 against West Virginia, and they will line up and they'll pound it down your throat with two tight end with Tyler Warren and Theo Johnson, and they'll have Nick Singleton and Katron in the backfield like we've seen them do. And the very next play, they'll go spread and they'll put Tyler Warren and Theo Johnson out wide. They'll put Nick in the slot. They'll have one of the receivers out there, and the ability to do all that kind of stuff with the personnel you have is special. And the defense doesn't know what you're going to do. They can't match personnel. Every time offenses change personnel, the defense is changing personnel to match that personnel. They don't know what they're going to do. So I think the ability to do that makes it really unique, and it takes some pressure off the receiver room a little bit.
Yeah, and seeing Katron catch balls last year and Nick starting in some of the practice film this year is really a good sign for that too, to do much more with that 22 or 21 personnel. So one more, if I may. So last year, Drew Aller obviously was probably the biggest addition to the team for the future of that team, but a very close second, if not a 1B thing, was Manny Diaz coming on as defensive coordinator. So talk about what you expect out of that defense with the second year with Manny Diaz at the helm and all the talent that they have coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I've said multiple times now that I think one of the biggest wins in the Big Ten this offseason was keeping Manny Diaz as your coordinator. It wasn't talked about a lot. There weren't a lot of rumors floating around of Diaz leaving, but I know for a fact that he was in the running for or getting considered or pursued for multiple FBS head coaching jobs. So the ability to keep him in that there is massive for the continuity, for the scheme. And to have both coordinators back for another year. I mean, it helps so much that you can't even really put it into words how big it is for the whole system. It's funny talking to Coach Diaz the other day. I asked him about that directly. I said, your name gets floated up a lot for head coaching opportunities. You're gonna, without a doubt, if you guys have a good year, your name will be on the top of a lot of lists for head coaching jobs. And he said, he had a funny quote. He said, "I've learned in my life that if you're happy, don't mess with happy." And I just thought it was funny. He's like, I'm pretty happy where I'm at, as a defensive coordinator at Penn State. As far as the defense goes, I mean, so much talent. Obviously the edge rushers are what stands out. Chop will be a day one pick. Adisa is obviously a freak. You got Denai. I mean, there's so much depth on the edges, and then at the defensive back position, at the end of the day, who's really going to step up outside of some of those guys that outside of the Kalen King, who's going to step up out there and be the guy that you can count on to play man to man when Manny Diaz wants to do all the different pressure packages that he wants to do. Is Johnny Dixon going to be able to man up and be that guy? From what I've heard, I talked to Terry Smith. It sounds like he is. It sounds like he's had a great camp. But obviously, when you lose, I forget the exact number, but Terry Smith made the point, and Manny Diaz, that there's a lot of turnovers hanging out in the NFL right now from last year's team.
Yeah.
Between all the guys that ended up getting picked. So a lot of turnovers, a lot of big plays that the defense made that they've lost. So someone's going to have to replace them, and I think they're looking at Johnny Dixon to make a lot of those big plays opposite of Kalen King now.
All right. Really quick here. We know you're pressed for time, so I'm going to let Tyler ask his question. Then we'd love to get your season prediction after that.
Yeah.
Adam, I'm kind of the booze expert for this show. So I just got one silly question for you.
Yeah.
When you're at Penn State, what's kind of like your go-to bar and like drinking? Like what do you do to let loose when you're at Penn State in a non-working environment? When
I'm at Penn State?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm old, guys. So when I was at Penn State, most of those bars weren't even there. So
that's true.
P-Man was G-Man. The Champs downtown was not there. So when I was there, it was the Den. The Den was the spot, right? That's where all the football players went. Now when I go back, definitely a Champs guy now. I mean, you can't really go wrong with Champs. I was just there. I was there not for a party festivity, but more so for dinner the other night when I was up there on Thursday. I think Champs is definitely the spot. And then P-Man's always so Mike Gesicki is like the biggest P-Man guy of all time. I mean, like if you ever want to, if you were at Penn State at that time, like you want to guarantee you see Mike somewhere, just go to P-Man and wait for him to walk in. So I used to always go to P-Man with Mike whenever I go up there to visit. Always had a great time there too. Those are kind of the two main. Is there anywhere else that people go up there? Like it's just P-Man and Champs, right?
I'm a big pickles guy, honestly.
Well, that's because you're classy. Yeah, it's like that's like the old school. Yeah.
Don't say you're old. I had a PhD and was working for like 7 years when you were a freshman, so you're not that old. So yeah, we'll get your prediction, but just talk about Happy Valley United a little bit. You've obviously come back. You went away to UMass and then Arizona State, and now you're back running this NIL thing. Everybody should donate at least $50 or whatever you can afford, right? But what brought you back here, and what is driving you and Hackenberg to really, try to be the face of NIL for Penn State?
Yeah, it's a lot of things. I mean, obviously Penn State's a special place to me. When I went to Penn State and when Hack went to Penn State, which is kind of this whole concept is why we decided to do it together is, we went to Penn State for reasons that are bigger than football and bigger than ourselves. I mean, you guys remember it was one of the darkest times in college football history. Was a really negative time around the program, and there wasn't a lot to play for. We were on bowl ban and sanctions. The kids could transfer immediately before the portal. When that was actually shocking that kids could transfer and play right away. And for us, it was all about just trying to rebuild the program and be part of something and be a play. I grew up a Penn State fan. Like I've worshipped Penn State for years since I was a little kid. So it's always meant a lot to me. And then, when I think for Hack and myself, like our careers didn't always go the way we wanted to at Penn State. I mean, my career ended up, I got hurt, ended up transferring. I mean, you guys know the story. Hackenberg was a freshman All-American and then played behind a terrible offensive line. The offense was brutal and didn't end the way he wanted it to either. But I think for us, knowing how special Penn State is, and now with the unique dynamic of college football, we felt like, and myself specifically, that I had really a unique following and kind of credibility in the college football space, and specifically at Penn State, to make an impact in NIL. And I think too, there's been this narrative that Penn State's a little bit behind in NIL, just so that it's been a tough transition. Penn State's a unique place. It's a lot of tradition, a lot of history of doing things one way for a long time. And after a lot of conversations with Coach Franklin and the people running Happy Valley United, wanted to get involved in whatever way possible. So, I'm involved a few different ways. A company I co-founded, Mercury, who manages all my content, does all that, we partnered with the collective. We partnered with Penn State Sports Properties and are, creating a bunch of different ways for cool content, for different podcasts and things like that. And then also for events that fans can do that will benefit the collective and raise money for Happy Valley United. And then two, I felt like at Penn State for us, a lot of the NIL money they've raised so far has been these big checks written by 5 donors, right? But the ability for every fan to get involved somehow, when I launched this Race to 107 with Happy Valley United, and we've been talking about this for a while, to be honest, guys, it's less about the money, right? It's less about raising $107,000. Like that's a lot of money. That'll pay for a lot of guys on that team to get them to come back. But obviously, they need more than that. It's not just about the money. It's about like getting everyone involved. It's about the education. It's about fans seeing that it's important and hearing me talk about it. And the $107,000 was just a number we made up. It's like let's get 1,000 some fans to give $50. And let's get people involved around this community around a cause. Because just because you can't stroke a $50,000 check or a $100,000 check doesn't mean you can't be involved in NIL in some capacity. And maybe one-time $50 donation turns into that person coming to an event in 3 months. Maybe it turns into them coming to something else next year. So really, for me, it's just spreading the word and using kind of the following I built around college football to make an impact at Penn State. Obviously, as a media personality and a guy who calls games now for other teams and things like that, it turns into everyone calling me a Penn State homer all the time. But I got to do what I can do to help the program and help Penn State move forward. And it's been really fun. I mean, the Race to 107, I think in like 3 days now, we've raised $25,000. Have a big announcement tomorrow. I'll just tell you guys now, we just got a matching gift. So We got a donor who's going to match everything we raised in the next 48 hours starting tomorrow. So really cool stuff. That's off to a great start, and the response from the community has been really cool.
Well, great job by you, and I think all the fans should be really proud and thankful for what you're doing for them. So
thank you, man.
For sure. All right, so where are we at? 11-1, 12-0, playoff. Where are we going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in. I haven't officially made all my season predictions, so like I'll give you guys a little bit of a. I have them. I just haven't officially put them out, right? Like I'm saving that content, but I will give you. I have Penn State at 11-1.
Okay.
Beating Ohio State. So that's why, and the reason is, I always go back to the quarterback position. The fact that Kyle McCord hasn't won that job yet is not a good sign for Ohio State. Not a good sign. I think that my money is now going on Devin Brown. The fact that Kyle McCord's been there for a while and is the veteran going to camp and can't win that job is not a good sign for Ohio State. Now, the only thing I'll say is Ryan Day could just be fooling us all, right? Like he could just be absolutely fooling us. There in college football without having to release the depth chart and all that stuff. People like to play games with the media, and we're easily tricked, obviously. So, but if that really is the case, then that's why I'm getting the 11-1. Penn State will beat Ohio State. I think Michigan's a tough one to beat this season. I think Michigan's about as good as they come. The interesting part will be that whole. I don't know if you saw Joel Klatt did a video on the three-way tie on the East.
Yes, we know this. We know this in and out. But so though, if that comes to pass, right, to get the three-way tie, Ohio State would then have to be good enough to beat Michigan. But if Michigan's beating us at the 10th game of the year, how they should be beating Ohio State too. Probably.
No doubt, but as you know, anything can happen.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be a fun year. What I just said about the quarterback thing at Ohio State is an interesting talk too. Like college football as a whole needs to, especially with where sports betting is on the money going in, needs to have the same rules that the NFL has from a depth chart, injury report standpoint. The fact that coaches try to hide who the starting quarterback is going to be and the broadcasters don't even know. There's games I'm calling. You don't know who the quarterback's going to be until you're up in the booth. I mean, it's ridiculous. Anyway, you're going to get me on a tangent there.
Yeah. Well, I know you got some things to do, but we definitely appreciate you stopping by, giving us some insight. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, appreciate it. Love what you guys are doing, man. Let's do it again during the season.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.